Oh, so it's not everybody, it's just some of y'all. Maybe y'all need to get y'all Wi-Fi game up. Maybe your Wi-Fi game is not strong enough to handle all this truth bomb. Truth. Coming at you in HD. Raw. Uncut. All black. Gold chains. Okay, anyway. But no, seriously. It's been a lot going on this weekend. And so today I wanted to talk to you all about what I found the most interesting and what I found, because there's a lot of stuff that's yet to be proven, and there's some stuff that is absolutely provable, and that should bother the hell out of us. And one of those things is the fact that the police department has decided that this investigation is none of our damn business. So for those of you who don't know, Judicial Watch is supposedly a nonpartisan judicial review organization to make sure that people aren't, held to standards above the law, that they're held accountable. Now, I will admit, they do have a tendency to lean on the conservative side, of course, as most of these organizations do. But I would consider them very similar. They will be like the conservative version of Election Justice USA. I think that's a pretty good comparison. They're not bad, actually. I've been looking at Judicial Review for a while, or Judicial Watch, excuse me, for a while before this election. They're pretty even-handed when they're calling for justice, I will admit. They issued a subpoena, or not a subpoena, I apologize, a FOIA. So I decided to do my due diligence and figure out what happened, because Judicial Watch does a pretty good job of following up. And if you haven't yet, go to their website. They do a pretty good job of following up. They do a pretty good job of keeping us updated as we go along, or as they go along. And there was a particular update that caught my attention. So before I delve into that update, I want to talk to you about what a FOIA is. So a FOIA is just an onomatopoeia for FOIA, which is an acronym for the Freedom of Information Act. And what they did essentially was initiate a Freedom of Information Act request, because in every situation except for very limited situations, like an open investigation, for example, they are supposed to provide that information. And it isn't just Judicial Watch who can request this. You should be able to request this. I should be able to request this. Attorneys who may be able to use this investigation for other, in other cases should be able to request this. Journalists request this type of information, obviously, even if it's an open investigation, so that they can do their job. There's a lot of reasons why you just need to know, okay, hey, it's an open investigation. All right, cool. Let me get this information so I can report it accurately, because the people deserve to know the truth. Now, I want to provide a little background information about the FOIA, or the Freedom of Information Act, so that you all know exactly how serious what I'm about to tell you is. So the Freedom of Information Act generally provides that any person has the right to request access to federal agency records or information, except to the extent the records are protected from disclosure by any of the non-exceptions contained in the law, or one of the 3 special law information exclusions. So the 9 exemptions include classified info, makes sense, okay. Internal personnel rules, which, probably goes alongside lines of classified info. Information that is exempt by other laws, okay. It's pretty general, but whatever. Trade secrets, so business secrets and things like that. So if the investigation requires your secret recipe to be dropped out, you don't have to tell me your secret recipe in order to get the accurate information. You can just say it's a secret recipe, and it was involved in SpongeBob's secret recipe or Mr. Krabs' secret recipe was involved in the murder of Seth Rich. You just call it secret recipe. You don't have to divulge the facts of the secret recipe. Interagency or infra-agency memoranda or letters. Okay, understood. There shouldn't be any inter or infra agency memorandums or letter, because we've been told that this is only a Metro DC Police Department situation, right? That's what we've been told. So we're on the right track so far. Personnel or medical files. Okay. Still, that I can't. So that excludes the hospital as far as Seth Rich is concerned. That excludes the hospital. So, but that doesn't exclude DC Police Department. We still haven't gotten to them yet. So we're waiting to figure out why they're excluded from telling us the truth. Law enforcement records or information, but that they have to have a reason. It can't just be like, we're not giving you information. That has to be a reason. And then information concerning bank supervision makes sense. And geological or geophysical information. Now that's kind of weird, but what my assumption would be is that they're speaking of specific locations that could possibly put people in danger. Okay. Now, there are also special laws surrounding the FOIA, or the Freedom of Information Act. So the exclusions include ongoing criminal investigations when the subject is unaware they're being investigated. Somebody's aware they're being investigated, that's for sure. Limited to criminal law enforcement agencies and protects the existence of informant records when the informant status has not been officially confirmed. Now that could be a problem, okay? So if that's the case, that could be a problem. And then the third exclusionary rule or exclusionary law is that, which is most relevant to us, is the FBI protecting the existence of foreign intelligence or counterintelligence or international terrorism records when the existence of such records is classified. Now, this is actually something that bothers me, because out of everything that, every possibility that the FOIA or the FOIA could be denied, that seems to be the most likely one. So in case you haven't noticed by now, I'm reading you this information because it was a request made by the Judicial Watch for FOIA, or Freedom of Information Act request to the DC Police Department, and also several months back the FBI. The DC Police Department has denied the Freedom of Information Act request, and currently Judicial Watch is in the process of suing for that. Now we can get into the nitty-gritty as to whether they'll win or not, but I think that's unimportant at this point. I think it's more telling the fact that we can't get information. Now, remember what they told you. They said it's a botched robbery. We know that. It's a botched robbery. It's a botched robbery. It's a botched robbery. So if the investigation is ongoing and you're standing by your word that it was a botched robbery, why not give us the information that's being requested? Because a private investigator, obviously, as you know, Rod Wheeler requested information, didn't really get much back. George Webb requested information. He got information, but it was through back channels. Judicial Watch requested formally the information. They were denied. Oh, somebody just said they wish that we would do this for Sean Lucas. Yeah, we still haven't been given an autopsy on Sean Lucas. We did try, and we have been trying. They won't give us one. In medical records, I mean, autopsies they are supposed to give us, but medical records we can't get. But you are right. We wish that we could do more to get Sean Lucas' situation down, but we can't. We've been trying. This is the first thing we did when we found out he passed, was to figure out what was the cause of death. And they refused to give it to us. Not only did the attorneys try, but private investigator I know personally tried as well, and they wouldn't give it to us. But anyway, so why isn't the DC Police Department giving us information about a botched robbery? If it's just a botched robbery, what the hell are they hiding? Or maybe, just maybe, the police department isn't the only one involved. Maybe there are other parties involved. Maybe they're not investigating shit and they don't want, because like it's a bunch of paperwork that they give you, and when they give it to you, they'll be like, here you go. Yo, there's nothing on here but some donuts, a little car with sirens on it, and then two guns, two like a little stick figure with two gunshots in his back. Like, that's what because they're not really investigating it. Or it's been turned over. The investigation has been turned over. Now, this is extremely telling, because there's no reason that if it's simply a botched robbery, that the Judicial Watch would have to sue for basic information about the investigation. Unless, of course, there was something to hide. Now, that gets over to where George Webb has been investigating. Now, George Webb, for the most part, has some pretty solid leads and some pretty solid evidence with some pretty solid facts. I don't agree with everything George Webb does, and I don't agree with all his conclusions. So for those of you who are curious, the reason I don't always quote George Webb is because, like, some of the conclusions that I hear that he makes aren't exactly accurate. Like, for example, apparently he concluded that Sean Lucas worked for the DNC. I can tell you for a fact, like, that's 90% not likely. We wouldn't have hired him to serve the process if he worked for the DNC. He probably wouldn't have still been in Florida if he worked for the Democratic National Committee. He would be in D.C. We don't really have any proof whatsoever that he was working. Like, that'd be weird to be a double agent. So, like, Sean Lucas was not like a lawyer or anybody working for the DNC. So, he's very good at what he does. Don't get it wrong. It's just that if I can't prove it, or if it's something that's hard to substantiate, or if there are like legitimate counters to that, then it's hard for me to be like, okay, yeah, we can just trust this guy's word 100%, because it's everybody. It's not like George Webb is amazing. You all should subscribe to his channel, because the facts that he reveals are crazy. Like, and they're super legitimate. It's just that some of them aren't. So, like, recently he just actually said that he has a 90% certainty that he found the killer, or at least, the person who conspired to have Seth Rich killed, which I pretty much for the most part agree with. But, like, then also at some point he said that Seth Rich and Sean Lucas knew each other, which I highly doubt. That's one of the things I just don't agree with, because I know who Sean Lucas is, because he served the process for our DNC fraud suit, and his MO wasn't to hang out with DNC operatives. It's like, it's just not that they wouldn't have been great friends, I'm sure. It's just that it just doesn't make any sense with the time frame. But I digress. George Webb did bring up something that's extremely important to think about. There were apparently the two rounds that were found in Seth Rich were FBI rounds. And that's what grabbed my attention to ask the question, well, what happened to the FOIA with Judicial Watch? We should know then. Because in the Freedom of Information Act, once you get that police investigation, one of the most basic questions that get answered is, oh, okay, what kind of rounds were found in the victim? That's a question that we haven't had answered for us. But George Webb, with the contact inside the DC Police Department, said he found out that they were FBI rounds. And that Seth Rich was not only in one medical facility, but two. Now, that's a hard fact to make up. It's one thing to say somebody knows somebody. It's like, okay, that could be right or wrong. But you can't make up, yeah, he was in this specific medical facility and then he was moved to a complete and totally different medical facility. That's a hard fact to make up. So whether or not he was actually shot with the FBI rounds, we can't prove that. But what we can absolutely prove is that someone is hiding something. And if someone or some group or some entity is hiding something, we should all be freaked out. Because that means that they are conspiring. Oh, yeah, there goes that word conspiracy. Oh, no, God, conspiracy theory. But that means that someone is conspiring to cover up something bigger. And if they're covering up something now, just the murder of a 27-year-old kid who worked at the DNC, imagine how many more times they got away with this and they were so confident that they weren't going to get caught. And that's how we got to the situation that we've arrived at with Seth Rich. Because there is one thing that I agree with George Webb. He said it's finding the murder of Seth Rich is extremely important, but it's not the murder that's important. It's the conspiracy behind it. Because that is a network. That is a network so much larger than what we can even fathom. That so many more people will go down, but even then, we won't catch them all because there's just way too many people involved. Even with this Broward County attorney who just randomly ends up on the beach. Like, this isn't like the New York, like, Soprano Mafia down here. People do come up missing for crime case, but this guy was investigating passports. And then people were like, oh, okay, well, that's not linked to the DNC, right? Turns out, yeah, it is also linked to the damn DNC. And for those of you who don't know, if you are looking for confirmation, yes, Broward County is Debbie Weiserman Schultz's stomping ground. I live here. Okay? Yes, this is her stomping ground. Yes, we do know for a fact that investigator, that federal prosecutor, was in fact investigating passport fraud. We do know that for a fact. But once again, it's kind of hard to know whether because there's so much, we're not being granted access to information that would otherwise be we would easily be able to get access to just by asking, hey, I'm a reporter, give me this information. It's simple. Unless someone is going out of their way to block access to information. We don't know for a fact. I'll tell you what we do know for. Seth Rich was murdered. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call that what it is. He was murdered. There was foul play. It was a political motive. I will say that for a fact. You will never I'm not arguing again with anybody about that anymore. Who murdered him is a real question. I do think that he was connected to WikiLeaks. But if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, then suffering succotash, you better call Daffy what he is. It's a duck. Now, what scares me, it's not just the murder, it's not just the facts surrounding it, but it's the denial of the facts surrounding it. It's all the circumstantial evidence. It's the psychology behind it. It's the clear motive to hide something. For those of you who don't know, H.A. Goodman went on RT on Crosstalk and debated with this DNC consultant. The consultant kept repeating over and over and over again, there's just no facts. We couldn't know possibly anything. We couldn't possibly know anything. We don't know. How could we know? We shouldn't know. We can. And H.A. is quoting him fact after fact after fact after fact after fact after fact after fact. And he's like, well, we couldn't know. How could we know this? And then out of nowhere, I'm dead serious about this. Out of nowhere, he says, I mean, how could we just can't blame the Clintons. We're like, whoa, wait a minute, bro. We didn't blame Bill and Hillary. That conversation hadn't even been brought up. It was only, we were talking about WikiLeaks, the possible connection to WikiLeaks, and then the suspicious circumstances of Seth Rich's murder. Not even talking about Hillary Clinton. And he just out of nowhere brings up Hillary Clinton and Bill. Now, for those of you who might be curious, the DNC consultant, yeah, he was the consultant for Bill Clinton's presidential campaign. And he was also the consultant for the former president of the Dominican Republic. And of course, as you probably guessed, the Dominican Republic former president and former President Bill Clinton are friends. They're great friends. That's just a random fact. But it's the mission that they're on to disprove. It's the fact that Kim.com, they're saying don't even let him show evidence. Evidence that's easy to prove if it's false or truthful. It's the mission. It's the lies. The fact that they say that the private investigator reneged on information, saying that I never said that. He didn't redact or retract the damn thing. He never did. You will never find an article where he actually comes out and retracts it. You will never see a video where he comes out and retracts anything. Never. It's Fox News calling out Hannity. It's the day that Kim.com comes out, they make a lie saying that he hacked Seth Rich's email, which is easy to verify whether he did or not. And it's easy to provide proof of whether he did or not. But they have not done so. The family has not come out on camera and said, stop investigating. Things that are easily reconcilable. Okay, if the PR guy, Mr. Bowman, if the family wants us to stop investigating, if they think that this is all mere conspiracy, then let them get on camera and tell us. It's not a hard thing to reconcile. If Kim.com's information is false or fallacious, let them provide it to the Congress on an official hearing, and they can use, this thing called technology to determine whether it's false or fallacious evidence, and we can move on. That takes all of a day. Hell, the email scandal took 15 days, it seems like. The 4 or 5 hearings. This would take a day. If these are easily, but they're like, no. But when they wanted to investigate someone else, it's let's investigate, let's do whatever we can. We have to throw all of our money and all the taxpayer dollars and resources to investigate this Russia probe with absolutely no evidence whatsoever. The Russia probe, we got to throw all of my tax dollars behind. You already do a shitty job spending my tax dollars anyway, so you wanna spend my tax dollars chasing Putin and Dragon Tail Land, in the imaginary fairy tale land that y'all believe, this fairy tale world where Russia's actually trying to elect Trump. Nobody wants to elect Trump. That dude's a moron. Whatever. But, okay, now I am okay with this. If you're going to use my tax dollars to investigate a possible political conspiracy, a very clear one, we don't know the outcome, but I would like to know the outcome. Let's do that. Nah, y'all crazy. That hits? Political hits? When has anybody ever been politically assassinated? We've only seen that like 120 times in history. We've only seen like one world war caused because of a political hit. We've only seen like one of the most famous presidents in history after he gave a speech about how the deep state wasn't going to take over the country or take over the world and run it from behind the scenes. We only saw one political assassination after that. Whatever. It's cool. We only see one person get have a dumbbell fall on his neck like a week or two before he was about to get up and speak against Hillary Clinton in a court case. That's only happened actually, I think it's happened like 2 or 3 times now. But if you actually think that political hits aren't a thing, then you need to wake up. Don't be naive. That's just a normal thing. Not even just speaking about the Clintons. That's normal. We learn about them in history all the time. And if you think they only happen to the presidents, those are just the ones we know about. So if high profile hits can happen, imagine how many hits we don't know about happen along the way before social media. Let us be very clear. There is a lot happening right now. There is a lot happening. And I guarantee, and I'm not going to do it. You know what? I'm punk ass. I'm not going to lie. You know what I would do? I would ask for a Freedom of Information Act request for the Pizzagate scandal in D.C. I would, but I'm not going to. You know why? Because we know what we're going to find. I know what we're going to find. I'm not an idiot. I'm not stupid. I know how these things end up. I don't want to die. I don't want my kids kidnapped and taken to some damn island. I don't want any of that. I learn more from what they won't tell me than what they will. I want to do what we can to get these lunatics out of office and out of power so we can take our country back. And people can keep saying, conspiracy theorists, conspiracy theorists. What? I say it before, and I'll say it again and again and again. J. Cole's $1 million house got raided because his white neighbors assumed he was selling weed because he had a nice car and dreadlocks. Raided on camera with less evidence than what we have for Seth Rich. If you think it's just that situation, J. Cole's a rapper, for those of you who don't know. He's a rapper, very famous one. But his house was raided because his neighbors thought he was selling drugs because he has a lot of money and he's black and he has dreadlocks. Not joking. And it's in the South. And that's not the only situation. Any situation essentially where there are too many cars going in and out of a black person's house, or anybody's house for that matter, and they're nice cars and they don't look like the upstanding, citizens that contribute tax dollars to society. Hint, hint. They're drug dealers. Cops are all up in there. This is not a joke. This is real life. For less, they will go in and rip your house down for some marijuana, for some medicine. But hey, gotta get that medicine. Fuck pedophilia, right? Fuck a political conspiracy theory. So, with that being said, it's about time for me to sign off. Please consider becoming a monthly contributor. Thank you all for who have already become contributors. There's been a lot of you recently. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. This story is developing quite interestingly. I'm going to keep giving you the facts. I'm going to keep providing analysis. I'm going to keep doing what I can with the time that I have allotted to me. And thank you all who keep tagging me in posts and sending me messages with more information and more facts. I couldn't do any of this without you. Like I said, I work 10 to 12 hours a day. I have another part-time job on the weekends. So, you all help me out tremendously. I can't express my gratitude enough. So let's keep researching, let's keep digging, and let's save this country together, right? I can't do it myself. I need a lot of sleep. So that's already one hindrance. Thank you all for watching. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Mikasa Sukasa. Please, like the page if you haven't yet. Message me. It takes a while for me to get to my messages because there's a lot of you all, but I try my hardest to respond back in a timely fashion. And, comment below. And always remember, find your balance.